Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we're talking with James B. Smith. He is the Vice President of Development for EasterSeals. Thank you so much, James, for being with us tonight.
Oh, it is my pleasure, Catherine, to be with you.
So we met quite serendipitously at an event in Arlington. We sat next to each other, and clearly you're as receptive to meeting new people as I am to meeting new people. And when you said you were with Easter Seals, I was like, wow, Easter Seals is one of those names we all recognize, and yet it's kind of murky as to what we know about an organization that has been around for like a century or nearly
Mhm.
that. So I'm so glad that you agreed to be on the show to tell us a little bit about a brand we recognize and don't know enough about. And as far as the history of Easter Seals and what Easter Seals is doing today.
Well, thank you for having me and thank you for the great connection. And you're right, Easter Seals has been in our community across our nation for over 100 years. Let's go all the way back to 1907 when a gentleman unfortunately lost his child to a tragic car accident. And he takes his child into the hospital only to find out that there are no services available for him. And so, determined not to have any other families kind of go through this experience, he sells his business and devotes his life to developing a children's hospital. As he goes further into this moment, he realizes that uh, hospitals have historically, until that time, kept children with disabilities out of the public eye, right? And so, children who had disability needs or disability or conditions were, looked at as not human almost. And he really had a concern about that. And so his work was around how do we make the life of a child, even with a child with disabilities, uh, that child needs to feel like they're whole, that there's nothing quote unquote wrong with them. And so, the work of Easter Seals began there. And as many of your viewers may remember, the focus in the early 1900s is around polio. And once polio, there was a vaccination to combat polio. Easter Seals was able to really change on a dime, so to speak. And I think that's one of the leading mantras of the work that we do. We really are responsive to the needs of the community. And so there are about 147 affiliates across the country, all of whom are serving families and children. And the unique thing about our work is we do get the opportunity to really focus on the very specific needs within our communities.
And so children and polio, that much I knew. And I
Mm-hmm.
think probably if people know your organization at all, they remember that. But I also know that in a lot of classic textbooks on how organizations rebrand and pivot, Easter Seals is one of the organizations that's pointed to as you've maintained, like you said, it's over 100 years old. And so you've evolved to do other things. And so
Mm-hmm.
while children with disabilities, you started around that, and I still think that's very much a core mission of your
Mm-hmm.
organization.
Mm-hmm.
Although how you work with families and how you work with children with disabilities and children who don't have disabilities, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is fascinating. Everyone now is interested in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me Easter Seals was early to that by having already figured out the best way to integrate children into a larger population. So talk a little bit about the work that you're still doing with children and how that probably is different from what we imagine.
So you're spot on, and one of the things I think that drives our work is the sense that all people, children, families, are entitled to having a life that is full of the quality of their lives, and they should not be labeled because of a disability or a condition. And so, we strive to really create this inclusive community where all people have the ability to live and to thrive. And so our work with children, and I think it's important to note that our work is really across the entire lifespan. Children, adults, and seniors. And so we do the whole, if you will, human experience. Our work with children specifically focus on those children, of course, that have challenges in terms of a disability, but it's also about children that come from low income families who need the extra advantage, if you will, of coming into the public education system ready to learn. And so when you come into a classroom at EasterSeals, in one of our child development centers, you won't be able to pick out or readily identify which child has autism or which child has a learning delayed disability, because our role is to open that classroom up in such a way that all children feel comfortable. We are certainly paying attention to their very specific and unique needs, but we don't segment children based on their learning styles or, again, their disabilities. It is about being inclusive in every sense of the word, and so that is one of our driving values as an organization. That we want children to learn, and we want children to feel comfortable. We don't want children to feel isolated, or we don't want children to feel because they have a disability, they're different in such a way that it's a negative thing. And so that whole sense of inclusivity really does tie to our attention to diversity and equity. Are we providing children the opportunity to learn among their peers, regardless of their challenges?
So you have a building, I think it was purchased in 1959 in DC, and I think that's going to undergo some renovations if I'm correct.
That is correct.
Yeah, so we don't want to lose sight of the fact that you're the VP of development. That means raising the money, folks. So, but you've got three other centers in Northern Virginia and Maryland as well. And so it sounds like a very big operation. How do families find you? I mean, how do you engage with with both the low income families and families where children have special needs?
That's a great question. And, we are, because we are a regional affiliate, we are based in Silver Spring, Maryland, but we do, as you've noted, we serve the DC metropolitan area. We have locations throughout the state of Maryland and Northern Virginia. And so, we are really regional in our approach. And how people find us really is interesting because I think it really is how we approach our services. One of the things that most people do not know about our affiliate, we are one of 15 national sites for the Stephen A. Cohen Military Family Clinic. There we provide mental health services, behavioral health services to veterans and their families. One of the things that the Stephen A. Cohen Clinic allows us to do is to not just focus on the need of the veteran, but the entire family. And so if a veteran comes to us from, let's say they recently came back from a war and they're experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, but at the same time, that husband, if you will, or wife, uh, their spouse has traveled with them, and they're challenged because they don't have steady income. And the child, who now has been, if you will, moving from place to place, they too may have some learning challenges. And so our approach is going to be to focus on the entire family. And so, in that regard, this family may not be a low income family, they may have means. And so, we really pay attention to all ends of the spectrum. And it's about providing the level of care and service for the entire family. And so, our work with children, with adults, we haven't talked yet about the work that we do with seniors, which, as people are aging, we provide adult day services in Baltimore and Silver Spring and Hagerstown, Maryland, where seniors can come all day and get the best of care while their adult children are working and providing care. So it is really a fascinating enterprise because we do pay attention to the entire lifespan of the human development experience.
You know what's interesting is that words matter, and how we talk about people with disabilities, or even making sure that we're talking in language that's people centered or people first language,
Hmm.
is important. In what you were talking about with dealing with families, serving families, is that trauma is not something that happens to one person. And this is sort of a recent, you know, acknowledgement of that, because that's
Hmm.
not always the way therapy was given to people who had
Hmm.
PTSD, for instance. And then as far as aging, again, so many families tried to deal with that on their own. Families didn't want to put their family members in institutions.
Hmm.
And so the day programs allow us to talk about healthy aging,
Hmm.
combating social isolation, and all of
Absolutely.
and all of this is sort of wrapped up in what we call supported services. And I just hear, as organizations like yours and just professionals in general, even the media, vocabulary and words evolve so that we have a better understanding of the services that we're providing, who we're providing them to, and how we talk about it. I mean, are you finding that just in the stretch of your career that has been true?
Yes, and I think a lot of it hinged upon even how we moved into this space as a result of the American Disabilities Act, right? And so you're talking about the linchpin of federal legislation that moved us into the space where we talk about people with disabilities as if they're human beings, right? We don't talk about them as if this they are a dysfunctional entity. But just because a person is wheelchair bound or has sight challenges or a child is autistic doesn't mean that this person is less than. And so I think with the again introduction of that legislation, I think it's shifted the conversation and how we engage and talk about uh, people that again have challenges.
And I think you're so right, and I hope that people who are viewing the show understand that, sometimes people are reluctant to talk about issues they don't understand because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing, or using an old term, or
Hmm.
saying something that's not politically correct. But the fact of the matter is, it's not hard to figure this out. So when we come back from a break, that's exactly what we're going to do, because we are talking with James Smith of EasterSeals. So join us after the break.
Caitlin, be serious. No, take the oath. Come on. I'm totally taking this seriously. Okay, I'm ready. You may begin. I pledge that I will never meet in person with anyone I first met online without checking with my parent or guardian. And furthermore, if my parent or guardian agrees to the meeting, it will be in a public place and my parent or guardian must come along. Do you pinky swear? I do.
When you teach your kids about internet safety, they'll pass it on. For more information, go to cableclicksmart.org.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training on a Friday afternoon, and the very next day he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. You don't know how much somebody can hide what's going on inside their head. Store your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Your blood pressure numbers could change your life. Talk to your doctor about creating a plan that works better for you. Start taking the right steps at manageyourbp.org.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and tonight we're talking with James B. Smith. He is the Vice President of Development for EasterSeals. Thank you so much for being here, James. I know this is of interest to people who know the name but are not really sure what you still do or what you do now. So, explain to us a little bit about some of the core elements, the core pillars of your organization.
Thanks again, Catherine, for having me. And that's the beauty about EasterSeals, being responsive to the needs of community. And so, in our particular affiliate, there are four areas for which I would consider to be our main focus. There is the child development centers, and there again we work with children from all spectrums of life, and really pay attention to their learning development. And so that we get children ready to go into the kindergarten experience. And so we have several centers that we operate, again, in the DC, Northern Virginia area. Uh, Alongside of that is our adult day services, where seniors who have challenges can come to our centers, and the services are so professional and profound. They're occupational therapists, they're speech therapists, there's a registered nurse. So if seniors need medicine and support at the center during the day, they can find it there, right? And it's again, we're paying attention to their cognitive and social skills, and so we're really proud of the work that we do in that realm as well. We do operate one of 15 Cohen clinics across the country, where we focus on the very specific needs of our veterans and their families. Once a family presents, and I think we talked about it in the other segment, we really want to pay attention to uh, the immediate crisis, whatever that might be, and whether it's a mental health crisis, a behavioral health crisis. And alongside of that, how do we really meet the need of the family? Because it's bigger than just one person, right? And the impact that people present when they come to us. And so, alongside of the work that we do in the Cohen Clinic, is our employment services. We certainly work with our veterans and their families to help place them in proper places of employment. Quality of life, I learned a long time ago, starts with a paycheck. And if people don't have what they need to provide for their basic needs, it's a challenge. And so our employment services network allows us to really help families with their resume building, their interview skills, and just really finding that right fit for them to really give them a sense of stability from an economic perspective. The other thing that we do is we run or offer respite care for weekends, because we understand that providing care for children who have challenges and adults who have challenges to care providers can really cause emotional burnout, physical burnout. And so we open our doors. We have a cadre of volunteers that help us year round, that children can come to us all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Adults can come to us all day Saturday and Sunday, to really give the care providers a mental break, to kind of just relax and just focus on their lives, and knowing that their loved ones are getting the very best of care and a very people focused, people oriented, people centric environment that's really paying attention to the needs of again, the whole family. And that's what I love working at EasterSeals, because it gives us the ability to really impact people's lives in a meaningful way, that we are really helping people to enjoy the quality of their lives.
Well, two surprises there, because I didn't know about your respite care and military staffing. And is the military staffing piece, is that something that grew out of the Cohen clinics?
It
How did
did.
you end up in that space? Because
Yeah, that's a great point, and it did. Because again, when you think about and peel back the layers of someone's mental health, uh, one reason, there's several, but one reason could be, well, I don't have stable income. I don't, even with the men and women that serve our country, and they come back and try to integrate back into civilian life, there are some challenges that come with that. And some of that might be, again, employment. Some of it may be housing. Some of it may be education. And so our employment uh, services looks into all of those dimensions so that we can really think about how we are best service to the family.
So I work with a number of nonprofits too who've been on this show, and workforce development is something that more and more organizations are understanding is a cornerstone of meeting the needs of families and people.
Mhm.
A job and a paycheck and a living wage. And so with your military staffing program, do you have partners so that, what I find is that you can do job skills training, but then those folks still have to find somebody who's going to hire them on. And it seems to me that's sort of a missing piece in a lot of programs is like, well, we're training people to do a certain job, but then where are the employers? So how does that piece look for you?
That's a great that's a huge part of what we do, because you're absolutely right. And so we have a myriad of partners where we're not just providing, again, the basic skills about resume writing, interviewing, but actually placement, right? And so we have contracts and partnerships with Department of Labor, with certain federal entities, other nonprofit organizations, and for profit. One of the things that I get to do in my job as in the role of VP of development is to make connections across the organization, right? And so it is very likely that we'll come across a corporate sponsor or a corporate partner, I should say, who says, "Hey, you know, we're interested in supporting one of your events," and they do that. At the same time, they could articulate to me that, we've got this issue with workforce shortage. Oh, well, we've got veterans that we've just trained in this very focused area of concentration. And so we make these connections, right? And so we're connecting with partners who are not just supporting us financially, but they're also opening doors and hiring our veterans and families. So it's a win-win model, if you will, because again, our focus is the family and how do we best support the family. But you're spot on in terms of being able to make that other piece work and fit.
Absolutely. The people companies have to step up and actually employ folks who are
Hmm.
who are trained and ready to work. And right
Hmm.
now you hear all kinds of chatter about, everybody needs help and there's not enough people. And it's interesting. It's like there's just not enough people. I'm like, I think there are people. I think maybe the process for connecting opportunities with people is something we need to look at. Maybe
Hmm.
that's the thing that needs to be fixed. But in your role as VP of development, you are challenged with trying to figure out numerous ways, to keep support for this organization going. And I know that it is challenging to be creative and to come up with things where people can support the organization in a number of ways. So tell us some of the things coming up and some of the things that you have found to be most effective.
Well, thank you. And I think a clear example of what's coming up really ties into, again, how we approach the work. We are hosting on October the 29th a community walk, which will begin and end at the National Harbor. The focus of the walk, and we're calling it Walk With Me, is really to raise awareness about our work and funds to support the work that we're doing in the community. Specifically, we chose the National Harbor for a number of reasons. It is almost the epicenter of where we're physically located and the work that we do in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And we have a vision and an aspiration to build a community mental health clinic in Prince George's County. It won't be just for Maryland residents. It obviously will be for those people that live in Northern Virginia as well. Because what we've seen from our work in the Cohen Clinic is there is still a huge need for community mental health in our region, right? And so this walk is really twofold. It's to raise awareness of that situation that we're trying to engage, as well as raise the funds. And so it's going to be a wonderful event. Our website, you've been scrolling it at the bottom. People can certainly go to our website to get all the information. It's a 5K walk on Saturday, October 29th. It will begin and end at the National Harbor. But it's going to be a wonderful day because it's for all families. We will have an opportunity for people who are physically challenged to participate. There'll be a virtual component. It's a day that's designed to really, again, shed light on the work that we're doing in the community, because we are responsive to what the community needs. And so that's to answer your question about, in my role, how do I keep it going? It really is about paying attention and listening to what the community needs, and then being able to take that and process with our team to really think about new innovative programs that meet the needs of the community.
Well, I think it's great that you figured out an event. The walk sounds terrific and the location is great. And at that time of the year, it should be lovely, not too hot. And so, but the coming together and the bringing together of people, it's so core to your organization that to have an event that mirrors what you believe in and
Mhm.
also raises awareness. And let's be frank, we're raising awareness as well as raising money. And this is a great way to do it. And I'm just so appreciative of the fact that we met and that you are open to doing this show, because I do believe that there are people out there like myself who are like, I know them. I'm not sure what they do. And so I hope people will not only participate in your walk, but will go to your website and understand what the programs are, who you serve, because we probably all know families that could benefit from your programs who may
Mhm.
not have found you. So
Mhm.
all of us are kind of ambassadors for what EasterSeals brings to the people in our own networks. And I always think that's a great thing. So thank you so much, James Smith. It's been a delight to have you.
Thank you, Catherine, for the invitation, and let's stay connected. And I would love to come back and talk more in depth about each of these four areas. But this has been a wonderful conversation, and we're really appreciative of the opportunity to connect.
Thank you so much. And this is what you need to know about EasterSeals.